Welcome to Two Arabs and a Podcast, a show with no limits, dating, business, martial arts, self-defense, and the life of two Arabs in America. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your hosts, the owner of Warrior Academy, the son of an immigrant, international traveler, black rank in Krav Maga, a jiu-jitsu practitioner, and Brazil's national champion. And of course, 2018 Self-Defense Instructor of the Year, a bodyguard and military combative instructors, none other than Frass. Joined by his co-host, Omar Aswan, the owner of Warrior Tactical Training, published author, doctor of criminology, world traveler, fluent in 4 languages, a military combat contractor, and a first-generation immigrant. The show begins now.
Welcome to another episode of Two Arabs and a Podcast. Host Omar Aswad, joined today with Frass. We're recording an amazing episode coming up about the Abraham Accords. How's it going, Frass?
Very good, man. I'm really excited by this. I mean, I don't know what you call this, 2 Arabs and 2 Israelis on a podcast or a Middle East invasion. I don't know how this is going to go.
Exactly. We have 2 Israeli guests today that will be joining us via Skype.
Before we go there, sorry to cut you off, you need to tell us about this new sensation going on. You became a TikTok sensation that Instagram had to delete you. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say congratulations to Omer Aswad. It started about 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, about 2 weeks ago. So I started posting videos to TikTok as a joke.
And he was dancing, by the way. Yes, Omer was putting the dashla on his head and he was dancing.
No. I started talking politics about the Middle Eastern politics. And what started as a joke, essentially, me joining TikTok, I started talking politics. And within 2 weeks, I started hitting 1 million views per week. This is second week that I hit 1 million. My videos went viral, got posted by famous journalists like Eddie Cohen. Israeli media covered two different agencies.
My father sent it to me. He's like, hey, this was your friend.
Exactly. So I went viral. As a result, I got reported on Instagram, even though I've never posted anything on Instagram political, and my Instagram was taken down. And it's just a crazy sensation. My death threats definitely increased. My hate mail increased, and
we will
accusations increased.
So people can understand really how this is really off the wall in a way. I think a lot of our audience will be surprised because when we explain to them how this matter, I want to be nice. I don't know. I don't want to go off the window already.
Not yet. Not in the first 5 minutes.
And it's warm beer, which I'm kind of insulted today, and it's Corona beer. God damn. So anyway, what I'm trying to put to the audience, because they don't understand some of this subject, everybody sees the headlines on the news, and they look, oh, Israel, Palestine, Muslim Jews. No, it's really not that. It is really deeper, and there's people like us, like Omar and me, how when we speak, and I am sure we speak the truth, and I'm positive about it, and I'm sticking to it, but how to the point that the side that plays the victim, it is the most aggressive, the most violent, and literally I want one day to sit with Omar and just do a session of reading the DMs to you guys, how far it goes, to the point there was a local MMA guy that till now I want to find out who he is, and I'm suspicious, but I'm not going to put him on blast till I find him because I'm involved in it. He's from Palestinian heritage, literally sent to Omar a threatening text. Of course, he had to use a different number, but I know who he is. That he said, I'm going to come and beat your ass. Which I'm like, really?
I'm still waiting for it, by the way.
Yeah. So, but anyway, let's continue with the good stuff going on here.
So today we're joined via Skype from Israel with 2 amazing friends that will be joining us to discuss the Abraham Accords. And that way we bring fairness. That way 2 Arabs and 2 Israelis can discuss this in fairness. So today we're joined by Sam. Welcome, Sam. How's it going, man?
My Israeli cousin. I don't know how that happened, but it happened.
Exactly. And we're also joined.
Good to see you guys.
Thank you. And we're also joined by Omer, not me, but another Omer from Israel. So,
and before we go forward, Sam was also a guest at our podcast about, what, Sam, twice?
Yeah, twice now.
I've known Samuel, unfortunately, since 2011? Me and you met.
Something like that.
Yeah. So and it's funny, I'm not going to share too many stories, but our meeting was really interesting. And it was a meeting at a seminar with my coach and another amazing coach in there. And ever since then, me and Sam obviously have done a lot of crazy shit, a lot of seminars, developed amazing self-defense curriculum. So it's great. It's a joy to have you, cousin, over.
Yeah.
So welcome, guys.
We figured you don't have enough fatwas on your head, so that's it.
That podcast was the worst. The one we brought Sam. Remember the shit that happened?
Oh, yeah.
That was the beginning of it. But then again, there was no the historical movement back then.
There was not.
So literally, we had a fatwa for us to get killed.
Pretty much. So now we increased to that.
And I don't know why Omer gets the most of it. There's something about Omer's face. They go after him first. They avoid me. I get every now and then some, but Omer gets it the most. Like, he gets it really raw.
Seriously, we should do one where I just read comments and DMs.
I think you should.
Seriously, that'd be funny.
And post it on the Instagram just how aggressive this shit is.
Exactly.
But anyway, go ahead.
So today we're discussing the Abraham Accords, historical peace treaty. For the first time, Gulf countries are recognizing Israel and opening relationships with Israel, and I think that's going to cause a domino effect. So what from an Israeli perspective, what do you think of this historical move, and what implication does it have? Are you guys welcoming of it, or are you seeing it as a government move that you're opposed to it? How do you feel?
I first of all, I'm going to, like a very nice Jewish Polish guy, I'm going to start with an apology, because my English is a lot less better than all three of you.
No, man, your English is really better than 80% of the Americans we have here, so I'm being honest.
You're speaking better than Trump already.
Or Biden.
All right. I think it's a compliment.
Yeah. It is a high compliment, trust me. You speak better than the two presidential nominees we got.
I think in the beginning, I was a bit cynical, and I told Sam, I think about a month ago, when this whole thing started, that we've been in some kind of connection with a few of the Gulf countries for about, I think, 20 years, even a bit more. And at the beginning, it felt like when you live in Tel Aviv and you have two neighbors, two guys, and they're neighbors, and they have a little kid, and they go protesting with that colorful flag, and after 20 years they come and say, oh, you know what, we're gay, and then you're surprised. Come on, everybody knew we have connections with the Gulf, it's not something new.
Absolutely.
It's not a big surprise, but I have to say, after a month, I am surprised, because there are already connections that, in broad daylight, we have guests from a few Arab countries.
Oh, that happened already?
Already happened.
Oh, wow. Sorry, I'm oblivious that it already happened.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's why I'm surprised when things really happened quick. I thought it was just another achievement, like an achievement.
Political achievement. Yeah. I agree.
But it looks like things are happening, and I think it should happen, because it's in the best interest of everyone.
100%.
Everyone can benefit in so many different ways. So as much as I think that the timing is not a coincidence, it's serving Netanyahu, it's serving Trump. As always, the thing that is most important for me is the bottom line, and the bottom line is good.
I agree. I think us as nations are even. First of all, I do agree Netanyahu and Trump are benefiting out of this because of the timing. 100%, because people are not familiar with the Israeli political issues. Also, they're going through things like us, of course. And I do agree, but I do mostly agree this is really a beneficial thing for our nations. And something, Omar said, which I liked, and it's true, it's to the fact what he said, and I think a lot of our audience are confused why we know about this when it comes to the Gulf nations. The Gulf nations never had a real legit issue formal with Israel. This was a political scene had to be put down, and especially had to be during, especially like the Gulf, because of the Holy Mosque, and it was suddenly painted that you talk to Israelis, you go to hell. I don't know who the hell made that stuff, but we'll get deeper in that on our end.
And just to clarify something for our audience, we're talking from two Arabs from the Gulf perspective. We're not Palestinians.
We're not Syrians.
We're not representing Palestinian perspective.
Nope.
We're talking from a Gulf perspective about a historical deal between the Gulf and Israel.
And when
we're not Palestinians, so don't accuse us of misrepresenting the Palestinian point of view, because we're not.
No, and
we have nothing to do with it.
says Gulf, this includes the United Emirates, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait. I don't recognize Iran because we don't recognize it as part of the Gulf. Kicked them out. Sorry. Not sorry. But Qatar and all of us here. And
exactly.
it's really a powerful, actually, part. And with our family as Israel now, I think it's amazing.
And I think what's different about this deal, I mean, Jordan made a peace deal in 1994. But what's different, it seems, about it, that people are very welcoming of it. People are involved in the peace deal. People want to actually travel to Israel. People are excited to go to Emirates. People are already writing songs. People are already opening companies. So it seems like it's not just a government move, like you said. It's more of the people are actually involved in trying to make relationships between the two countries openly, versus other peace deals like Jordan. It's on paper, but really the people are not on board with it, essentially, or to that extent. The same thing with Egypt, of course. So in terms of Israelis,
I want to add one thing and kind of reinforce what Omer said. It is funny, we got Omar and Omer, so it's kind of entertaining.
Yeah, I gotta go. So it's your buddy is Omar. How we pronounce his name? Omer. Shit.
Just be like the Israeli Omer and the Iraqi Omer.
Yeah,
Don't make it easier.
Iraq Omar and Israeli Omar. Go ahead, Sam. Sorry.
And to make it funny, Omar writes his name with an E, and Omer writes his name with an A. So there you go with English. But here's the thing, and it adds to the perspective exactly what the end of Omar's words about Jordan, for example. But if you look at peace treaties, Israel got peace treaties with Egypt and Jordan. And the thing is, we had several wars with those countries. And it's a political peace, meaning the accords are signed, but let's say the general population is not that happy to welcome Israelis, and we don't see a lot of visitors from those countries, a lot of tourists coming over here. And even in Egypt, we have the longest peace from the 70s. There is still, even though we got a lot of, again, political peace and even military support and working with the two countries with intelligence and support and all those things, they still have TV shows that are very derogatory to Jews and Israel, etc.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at the Gulf, it's not a peace treaty; it's a normalization.
Exactly.
We never had war.
I like
with
that
the
we put
Gulf.
it. Absolutely.
Exactly.
And you see the difference between peace treaties where we have the political situation signed peace treaty, but the people are not very open to it. On the other hand, in the Gulf, it's a normalization. We never had a war. We never had a fight.
No.
Exactly.
But you see how people are welcoming the peace. And if you look at Sudan, which has been on the news for the last
That's another one.
Exactly.
Yeah. That surprised me, by the way.
Yeah, by the way, it just happened. It's like it officially happened yesterday.
Breaking news,
today.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I never heard rumors of it.
No,
I haven't
just-
anything. It just came out of anywhere. I mean, because I did speak to Sam. When did the first time I told you about the plan that I heard in MBS? Remember? And you said, no way. And I told you, this is cooking?
That was years ago, yeah.
Yeah, when MBS took over.
Exactly.
And it's true. This is, by the way, we're not going to break news here, but maybe to news to the people all around, because everybody says Trump did it. With all due respect, Americans, you like to get a lot of fucking credit for everything. This has actually been going on, and it's led by MBS discussions, because what happened is, here's the true fact, and we will get more in details when we get the time about this, but I don't want to jump on because I don't want to cut time on this one. But what I want to say is MBS led it by starting the same thing Sam said. He said, what has Israel ever done to any nations in the Gulf? That was the beginning. I would never forget that when he said that. And he was like, so, all right, Palestine doesn't have a land. Let's find solutions. And then when they played the game, and he said, okay, let's go back to history. What has Israel done?
Exactly, and I think from like Iraqi media has been covering that a lot.
Yes.
The question that had been asked: what has Israel done against Iraq? Nothing. When did Israel attack Iraq? Never. When did Israelis go?
Actually, there was one nuclear reactor
That was bombed in the
doesn't exist
80s.
Iraq.
Yeah, that was it. That was a
And
specific.
By the way, there were Iraqi troops in the 48.
48 and 67 in the 6 Day War.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's like, I think it's a long time ago, and I think the big difference now is that the people recognize the opportunities for everyone, and when we signed the peace treaty with Jordan, it was like I'm going to talk in maybe it's not the right way you say, but like two boxers in the ring, and they just sent both of them to sit in the corner for a minute, but
exactly.
Just to put down the tension. It didn't end the hostility.
Yes,
exactly.
It didn't end the grudges.
Exactly.
And both don't exist here. You know, like my dad was in a few wars, and he has, like, let's say he has scars from the Egyptian front. Now, he doesn't hate the Egyptians, but nobody has anything to do with anyone in Dubai, in Qatar.
Well,
exactly.
Also, Sam said something where Sam is correct about the Egyptian media was not even friendly about being Jewish or Israeli. Even though they're Jewish Egyptians, I remember there was a weird thing going in the 80s, how they accused the Zionists, is that what they call the Israelis? Zionists, sending HIV-infected prostitutes to fuck the spies and shit and all hell, and they made movies. I know Sam is like laughing, is that, yeah. No. Oh, dude, anything, like we would be sitting, this is how retarded it is, and of course I'm going to trigger a few people using this word, which is fine. We'd be sitting, and let's say if the TV didn't work, it's like, oh, the damn Zionist. I'm like, how did the Zionists come here and fuck your TV over? Like, how does this make sense?
No, exactly. But I think going to that point, yes, Iraq was involved in the military, but in terms of the people, didn't really suffer victimization or have a conflict with the Israeli people.
Yeah, that
the
was
two
a direct
peoples
military
don't.
attack.
There's a military attack, but the people don't. And in terms of perspective, now the Iraqi media has been talking about that a lot, and I'm going to trigger people and get more death threats. Hamas has been responsible for 1,201 suicide bombing in Iraq. 1,201. 1,201 responsible for suicide bombing in Iraq. The Israelis are responsible for 0. So in terms of people, they're like, hey, Hamas is actually blowing themselves up in Iraq. The Israelis are not. So why do I have problems with the Israelis but I'm cheering the Hamas? And people are having that realization and waking up and be like, actually, I have somebody who's killing me and somebody who has done nothing to me. And a lot of people are moving in that direction. In terms of, I've been noticing a lot of the Gulf regions have been having, the people are actually cheering on social media or asking for a normalization because they see the benefit of it and don't see the propaganda that had been taught for the last 80 years that the Israelis are the enemy, when they're realizing, actually, no, there is no enemy. We have nothing between us. We're the same people. You have a problem with your neighbor. You Palestinians and Israelis are fighting over border, but that has nothing to do with me as Iraqi or Saudi or Emirati or Kuwaiti. It has nothing to do with me. You guys are having a border issue with two countries. Why am I involved in another country's border issue? Pakistan and India has a border issue. Why am I going to take sides and boycott India or Pakistan? It has nothing to do with me. Right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
And my point about Sudan, it's not normalization. Sudan is a peace treaty because Sudan sent troops to fight against Israel, and we were actually in war against Sudan.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And so
Sudan has an army?
Sudan, it used to. Go back 50 years.
It used to be only one country and not two.
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about
the United Sudan under Omar Bashir.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say what?
You can see the difference because with the Emirates, you had they were blessing us on social media, on Twitter, on Facebook, and all those things.
There's a tourism
Everyone
company.
would just come visit us, you're welcome, etc. In Sudan, when they announced it yesterday and today, I'm not sure when you guys gonna post this, but we're talking about the actual day that the announcement was made. There were already protesting in the streets of Sudan against this peace treaty. So it's very, very different. But in terms of normalization versus peace, that's kind of like the difference between two hostile countries versus two countries that politically were not aligned and politically could not correspond with each other officially, but there's no grudges.
The first wave of attack that happened on the behalf of the Saudis, when I say attack not against Israel, it's against Palestine and the Palestinian Authority and the Palestinian movement, which they call, the first hashtag was pioneered. As soon as MBS spoke, all the writers, the powerful people of Saudi are writers. My dad is a writer as well. And they went to Twitter, and the hashtag in Arabic say, Laysa qadiyati, not my case. It was the number one hashtag
still,
by Twitter, by every prominent Saudi writer, and then the citizens start blowing it up immediately. We started in Saudi Arabia to lead the Gulf attack against this anti-Israeli movement, which started maybe last year?
Exactly.
Yeah. And then now it really caught up. So there was already a preparation mentally, and there's acceptance. Just like you guys said, wow, like there's a whole welcoming, there's a whole, there's like, hey man, we're, friends and families now.
I think people are waking up, realizing that the Israelis is not really the enemy, first of all. They're also waking up and seeing the Palestinian government, both Fatah and Hamas, as a corrupt organizations that the Arab world has been sponsoring and directly and supporting, and they haven't provided anything back to their people, and actually they have harmed the Arab people who has been feeding them. So Hamas, who's been benefiting, and the Palestinian government been benefiting from Iraq for many, many years, have hurt us by sending us suicide bombers. The Saudis, who have been supporting the Palestinian government for many, many years, have been victimized by the Palestinian government. So they're waking up and realizing, why am I helping somebody who's actually negatively impacting me versus having a relationship with somebody who's done nothing negative or positive towards me? And I think that's the problem. But do you see the peace deal going in the direction of having an actual peace, even political peace, with the Palestinian side, like Emirat or Sudan?
Should we start or them?
Let them start.
Let the Israelis start, then we're going to shoot the Gulf nations.
I'll give you the headline and let Sam do the work.
Well, okay. Sam did the work before and all hell broke loose, so I don't know, Omer, we might have you choose this. Sam already spoke his mind about it in 2-3 podcasts.
Listen, there's a famous sentence. The Palestinians do not miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity.
Very well said.
I think that there are it's very, very complex, and I also think we can't take all the responsibility off Israel. We do have our responsibilities towards the situation, but they insist for many years to sabotage every effort, and in quite a few cases wait until the last minute to stop a deal or a treaty or whatever.
Well, you just hit the hammer there when you said responsibility. Like you said, you want to claim some, but Palestine is known to be fully victim mentality and not taking responsibility. Yeah. And I do admire of you guys saying that. The fact is, you guys do know you have a role in this. You do understand and I think honestly, as much as I'm not a fan of him, Netanyahu, he kind of mentioned that there have to be a role on our side as well.
It's both sides.
Exactly. It's both ends. I mean, it's just not a one-sided thing. It's both ends. But if the other side, like you said, is not claiming responsibility, how are we going to move on?
But I think, what other side? What other side? The Palestinians are not united in terms of a front of a government. They have two parties that are fighting against each other. And when the PLO made peace treaties and signed it, Hamas went and attacked Israel within months. So who you're going to sign peace with if you have two parties that are not agreeing to actually talk on behalf of their people? They actually have division within Palestine. So I think that.
That's said to that. Right now, officially, the Israeli government does not speak with Hamas, and Hamas officially does not speak with the Israeli government. However, somehow, about every month, about $15 million from Qatar goes through Israel in suitcases to the Gaza Strip. Okay, somewhere between 15 million and sometimes
Saudi used to do that. We stopped that when MBS came into power.
Now,
which means, I'm sorry, Sam, which means that I, with two businesses closed for 4 months, get less help from Netanyahu than he gives to Gaza Strip.
Oh, it sounds like us Americans.
Exactly.
It sounds like us.
Now, here's the thing. going back to you talking about there's a political split with the two parties, with the Palestinians. Now, in the Gaza Strip, Hamas is the ruling party. It, let's say, won officially in the only democratic so-called elections back in, when was it, 2008, 2009, something like that. It was still in the Obama days. And right now, you have the Palestinian Jihad organization.
Which is split up.
And the Palestinian, and right now, they've been shooting rockets for the past probably 2 years to instigate fights between Israel and the Gaza Strip, and Hamas either stops them or they manage to shoot a few rockets trying to instigate fighting between Israel and the Gaza Strip. So even within the Strip itself, you have various political parties. Now, yes, the Palestinian Jihad organization is tiny compared to Hamas. It's very, very small. However, their rockets are just as bad, and they're shooting versus civilian population. And Hamas, there is argument here, because we don't know the real thing, and we have to be fed by the media, whether or not things happen with the blind eye of Hamas, or they actually approve it, or against the will. But even there, they're trying to instigate fights to stop the non-discussed ceasefire between us and them, and trying to cause riots. So it's not even two parties, because right now Hamas, by some parties, is looking to be too literal in terms of its relationship with Israel. So it's like, whoever you look at, there's always someone a little more fanatic, a little more crazy to the side, saying, you're not militaristic enough, you're not fighting for the cause enough. And actually, on the same token, we're starting to have that shit over here with some of our, closed crazies that are starting to step out of the closet.
Oh, really?
And talking about insane shit. It's just like they want Israel destroyed. Talking about Israelis that they don't want the Israeli Democratic Republic. The Republic here. They want essentially to rebuild the biblical Judea kingdom. And they don't want a liberal democratic country. They want essentially a religious Jewish monarchy here, and they're fine with destroying the country. Now, it's very few. We're talking about probably several hundred people out of a population of 9 million. However, when you have a political system that has multiple parties, if you care enough and you can get enough people to vote for you, we're starting to get those crazies in our parliament. So we got the crazies in the parliament from the Israeli Jewish side that's saying that, they don't even argue about it. They want a religious state here. And then you have in the same parliament, the Israeli Arab side, like Balad, for example, that is part of the three parties that united for election purposes, that actually condemn the normalization and even the peace treaty with Sudan. As soon as it was announced, you have the Israeli Arab in the parliaments, just, they're a small faction out of it, again going, this treaty is horrible, you're hurting the Arab people, you're hurting Islam, you're hurting the Palestinians.
Pause on that, Sam, before we miss that. And I want our audience to pay attention to this. So there's some of our audience is very broad, but is also very Middle Eastern centric. And a lot of people in the Middle East, America is fucked in my opinion. I'm sorry. People's like, oh my God, you're sour. But it's like they're already busy with whatever political crap we're going through and trying to figure out if we're racist or not. So while we're going 200 years back, let's move forward the Middle East. So to our crowd, when they understand, Sam just said something about the Israeli Arab Parliament. Believe it or not, this is why we in the Gulf stand now by Israel. Israel, before Palestinians, whatever crap they're claiming, Israel have allowed Arabs to live and work there. Am I not correct? guys.
You are.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Isn't it 25% of Israeli population is of Arab descent? Or something around that number?
Arab descent, I think even more. Even more.
So you're talking about
when you say,
they are.
Oh, wait a second, Frass, 1 second. When you say Arab descent, about 50% of the Jewish population here is of Arab descent because they came from Arab countries.
Exactly.
So if you say Arab descent, that includes the Jews because that's a country.
No,
That's
of
Yeah,
course.
but I'm saying Arab, like Arab Israelis. Okay,
Arab
so let's put it
Israelis,
that way. Okay.
Yeah.
So these
let's say you have two parts. You have 21% of the 21% of the Israeli population of 9.2 million. 21% are Arabic, and out of the other, about 74%, I think Sam is right. About half of them come from Arabic countries, whether from the Gulf or from Northern Africa.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because of you got Algeria. So going back quick before we lose. So when I say this about the Arab Israelis, they are involved in medicine. They work in businesses, right, guys, and politics. Am I correct?
Of course.
Oh yeah, okay. I sent you. I don't have the numbers. It's too bad I didn't pull it. I sent it to you a while ago. I think at least 30% of all, at least 30% of all pharmacists working in Israel are Arab.
Okay. Yeah. So here I'm hitting. Go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
When I cross the street, I have a pharmacy that I go there. Across my street. All the pharmacists are Arab.
Yeah. So here's my point. What I want to hit.
No
so when people say why we should be welcoming about this, do understand the Israelis, they're not as hatred just to all Arab, and this is what what the painting was. This is what we grew up around, and it is incorrect. So this is what's helping the exposure. People's like, holy shit, you guys are welcoming. I was like, they have not done. But I bet you're not going to have an Israeli working in Palestine.
No. So I want to address that. Cool. I want to hit a couple points. Okay. First of all, going back to the division in the Palestinian government. Well, first of all, they're divided. Second of all, in terms of destroying peace treaties at the last minute, well, the Palestinian government has directly benefited out of conflict. I mean, Hani out of Hamas came out of a refugee camp, broke as fuck, and now he's worth $4.5 billion. Where did he come up with the money? Or the Palestinian government, Yasser Arafat's daughter is one of the richest people living in Paris, with an Israeli passport, by the way. So you have a lot of these leaders who are coming into a conflict, and they extend the conflict because they benefit their pockets out of it, and their bank accounts get fatter from having a conflict. So they're getting richer from having a war and having a conflict. They don't want to resolve it because essentially, what are they going to do after the conflict is gone? In that aspect. Second of all, and I want to ask you in terms of that aspect. So the Hamas, specifically Hamas, accuses the Israeli side of not, first of all, doesn't recognize Israel, and accuses the Israeli side of being evil, specifically using the word evil, but yet their leadership are in Israel getting treated in your hospitals. So for example, Saab Arakat, who's not from Hamas, is currently in Israel getting treated for coronavirus. The same guy that said Israel is an evil state. So as an Israeli and a former military, you're basically treating known terrorists who are sending their kids to kill you, and now you're treating them in your hospitals. Why? Why are you treating Hamas leaders and PLO?
I want to make a few comments about that specifically, because Saeb Arikat, to anyone who doesn't know, heads the PLO peace treaties to Israel essentially from the initiation of talks. He was always the senior delegate to all peace conversation, peace talks, etc. And Saeb Arikat never supported terrorist attacks on Israel and never condemned violence. Now he is part of the Fatah that essentially still has various military factions that are still sworn against Israel. Yes, however, he himself was always the main cog, even though they didn't result in anything major in the bottom line to all the treaties. Now, there is an argument within Israel, should they not have treated him, because he did not show up in an Israeli hospital. Israel sent an ambulance to to Jericho, which is is in the Palestinian Authority rules, collected him sick and brought him to treatment in the Israeli hospital, and he's getting treated. Now, honestly, from at least the media publication, he's not doing that well. He's fairly old, and COVID doesn't work well for people his age, and etc. Now, honestly, yes, we are treating him, but there is open arguments, should we or should we not treat him? That being said, the arguments are not should we bring him in. The arguments are why are we treating him, but the bottom line is we are treating him.
But hold on a second, Sam. Let me ask you a question. Sure, continue your point.
Yeah, I was about to say, Israeli military doctors and Israeli physicians in hospitals treated Palestinian hostiles, even suicide bombers that survived. They treated them, and Israelis, doctors and physicians, etc., even military doctors and paramedics treated, and they still treat anyone, even if it was a Palestinian shooting or trying to blow up Israeli soldiers. If they show up and he's there, they treat him, and if they don't treat him, people get reprimanded. I mean, and it's a huge case in case they let him die without proper treatment. And that's part of why we treat him. And there is two arguments behind it. The one argument goes back to, actually three arguments. One, the argument of religion, that it's something you're supposed to do as a Jewish person. Let me completely ignore that argument.
Yeah, please.
The second argument is the values of the state of Israel. And that's the argument I support. It's within the values of the country of Israel that we treat people, and we treat everyone, even the one that are hostile to us. Mm-hmm. And that is the reason why we treat them. The third argument is the beneficial, because it has happened. There was a bombing in Jerusalem, I think it was back in the 90s, the early 90s, that they brought in mass amount of casualties and injured and wounded. And one of the guys that were injured, and he was badly injured, one of the MDs that were working on him on the ER, some guy showed up and was just like, "You're treating the terrorist. Stop treating him. He's a terrorist." And I wasn't there, but he didn't get the proper care he should. And in the end, they found out he wasn't the terrorist. He was one of the victims. Oh, wow. And one of the right-wing argument is that we treat everyone because we may lose one of our own, especially when you're talking about terrorist attack within the civilian population. I think that one is also bullshit, and that's it's completely bullshit. The bottom line, we treat them because that's the values of the Israeli country.
Yeah. Okay, if I can, I'm sorry.
Sure.
So if I can pick up on Sam, I think about the cyber attacks, and every Palestinian politician or whatever, I think I always look at what we profit. If we take care of a Palestinian official, even a hostile one, it means that we are better than them and we prove them wrong. And that's a very important point. It's just, and I know that right now the Palestinian media is dealing with it, and they're quite confused because they say we cut the connection with Israel. So if you cut the connection, cut the connection. Exactly. If you're treating someone very, very senior in your parliament, then we don't cut the connection. So
my question is to you, Omar, do you guys Okay, so we're having a problem to basically get other than, kill them all, fuck them all kind of shit from the Palestinian. Is there anything from the people in there, any of us from any side know that they want this deal to be peaceful and move on? Or is everybody hostile? Do we have any side from there that speaks about
the Palestinians rejected it, both sides
Okay, we're saying when you say rejected it, is this governmental or this is people?
Governmental and people. The people have been attacking Emirat and attacking
I've
Saudi.
seen what they did, but as Israelis, since you're neighbors to them, other than the fucking keyboard jihadi war. No, we have the jihadi warriors. The keyboard jihadis, we call them, is different than one. So I'm trying to figure out is, what do you guys hear? Because I know you guys also have friends that are from Palestine. Because I heard, like, my tattooist is one, and he said he always loves going to hang with Israelis and has a great time. He like speaks highly. So do you guys know anything? I mean, have any friends or anything said to you how they're like, what they feel about this and how it's putting them in a different corner by the Arab world? Because, like it or not, I don't care what people say, Saudi Arabia is the lead now of the Arab world. And you see the movement they're going. And now the Emirates is the second one, the strongest. We're waiting for the others. So that puts them really in a very corner. For just an Arab country dealing with, holy shit, now you have Sudan, which I know it's a political piece, but it's still a big move.
Yeah.
So sorry guys, but I'm just kind of curious if you guys know something that we don't know, because we don't hear anything positive.
From the Palestinian side.
Well, I'm speaking Palestinian civilians, for fuck the governments, so.
I think that there's a line we have to draw between.
Did we lose them?
Said is very, very true about people getting. You get me?
Yeah, it cut off a bit. Yeah, it cut off like for a second. Yeah. Repeat, go again. Sorry.
Okay. So I think that you have to draw a line between the politician and the people. And what Omer says is very, very true. The politicians, either Hamas or Fatah or whatever, they get profit, financial profit, from the hostilities. They get money from their supporters like Erdogan, and they control, for example, Hamas controls the tunnels that get weaponry and also food into Gaza. So
by the way, that's a good point, because a lot of people don't understand that. Yeah.
So this is like in every war, especially in long-term wars, there is war economy, and there's always somebody that profits from war economy.
100%.
The general people, the majority of the general people just want to get up in the morning, go to work, send their kids to a good school, and that's it. Okay, I'm sure that my Polish mom that wanted me to be a lawyer or a doctor, there's a lot of moms in Ramallah or Shem, Nablus or whatever, that the moms don't really want their son to be a shaheed. That's bullshit.
I believe you. I agree with you 100% on that. Yes.
Yeah, a nice life and a good profession and a nice house. She wants grandchildren, and that's it. That's what everybody wants. And I think, and to continue with your other question, in my bars, I have a few Arab clients. I have no idea where they come from, and I think that's the point. I don't give a shit if they come from Ramallah or from a village in the northern part of Israel, or I don't care. They're my clients. I want them to come and drink beer or whiskey or whatever and have fun. And
hopefully us soon.
It's in my best interest that they have a good job, good education, my house in Israel, and they can come and pay my salary by drinking beer. As simple as it gets. And nobody cares about what happens between the politicians, because we don't profit from that.
Exactly, we're the people.
Profit from that.
And I've said that to a lot of my Arab friends that understand. I was like, guys, do you really want to? And I told this to them, to be honest with you. And when I said, and Omar is the same. That's how me and him regard. I was like, do you? And I said it, and I was like, because I have my friendship with my brother Sam. I said I have a problem believing that the Israelis are having a ball with this constant fucking threat, with this constant fucking economy disruption. Who the fuck likes getting up in the morning and kid blew himself up and just took out half of your neighborhood? I want to know when a human being is really impressed to get up in the morning and just see this kind of view.
No, exactly.
And that's what I told him. My argument with him was like, you think the Israelis are cheering for this? You're fucking crazy.
I think the politicians are hypocrite. For example, you just mentioned Erdogan, a great point. Erdogan came out to speak against Emirat peace treaty and accused them of being sellouts to the Palestinian cause. But Erdogan and Turkey has peace treaty with Israel and they have working relationships since 1949. So he's accusing Emirat of doing the same thing he's doing, and he's trying to rile up the public opinion against Emirat when he himself has working relationships with the Israelis. And I mean, just to go back to the Palestinian hospital issue, I mean, Sam, and just to play devil advocate, yes, treating Palestinians, regular citizens is cool, but and Saab Arakat, you might be like, oh, he's a negotiator, but you also have treated known terrorists of the Hamas organization like Sheikh Hassan Youssef or Haniya's kids.
Sheikh Yasser Arafat was treated.
Exactly. So you have known terrorists that are getting treated in Israeli hospitals. And the reason I bring it up, because the Palestinian side, in terms of the government propaganda, keeps accusing the Israeli side of being evil. And my argument, if they're evil, they wouldn't be treating your terrorists.
Thank you.
If they're evil, they wouldn't be, I mean, yeah, regular citizens is cool, but if they're evil, they wouldn't be treating your actual leadership that are actual terrorists.
I mean, Israel claimed he was the leader?
Exactly, he did. If the Israelis are so bad in terms of a government, they wouldn't allow Hamas leadership to come and get treated in their hospitals, and they wouldn't allow them to have their kids. I mean, I just found out Haniya's 3 sisters, you know Haniya, of course, Prime Minister from Hamas, his 3 sisters live in Israel, and they're Israeli citizens. The same guy that accuses Israel of being evil and doesn't recognize Israel, his own sisters live in Israel.
Right, so hit the break. Since you're around, because you're married to Palestinian families and all this, okay, my question, I know, I'm going to cause a divorce here. But, geez, my phone blew up. Okay, so anyway, have you, when you get into those arguments, have you said this to them, and what is their reaction?
Their reaction is...
About her. I'm interested to understand the answer, because you know me, you're more patient than I am. I don't deal with this shit. Sam is laughing
If somebody has a good divorce attorney, please send it to me before I finish my point.
By the way, on the record, I'm gonna go, I love Omer's wife. He has an angel. I don't know how the fuck did he score such a woman. I am jealous, but anyways.
I don't know.
But I don't know how she's patient. But anyway, go ahead.
I think in terms of her family are like the regular Palestinian families that live in the United States. They get fed the lines from the media. They get fed the lines and say, Israel is terrible. Well, hold on a second. If they're terrible, why are they treating Hamas leadership? If they're so bad, why are they actually helping and half of the Palestinian government get their salaries from Israel in terms of things? And then you get the counter arguments. Like I asked about Saab Arakat, and the argument was he has no hospital to go to. Well, then my question was the H1 in the West Bank and the Gaza has been in control of the Palestinian authorities and Hamas for a very long time. Why haven't they built the hospital out of the billions of dollars they've been getting in donations? Why haven't they built that? Actually, by the way, for our listeners, the Palestinian government has declined and refused twice, not once, twice, corona aid from Emirat because it came through an Israeli airport. But the same government, when they got sick, they went to Israel. What kind of logic is that? I don't know. So they refuse aid for their...
We need to have a bill that goes hypocrite of the day.
Exactly. So they refuse aid to their actual citizens because they accused Emirat of being a sellout and having ties with Israel. But then when they got sick, they went to the Israeli hospitals. So how does that make sense? That doesn't make sense at all.
And there's another thing about this. You know, they did a fatwa, and I don't know if our crowd understand what fatwa means. Basically, it's a religious decree.
Law. Yeah.
Law. And they literally said, if they kill, again, ladies and gentlemen, pay attention to this. If they kill anybody from Emirates, Iraq, or Saudi, the Gulf nation, they automatically go to heaven. Because, by the way, some of you dumbasses since 9/11, do you think every Arab coming after white people for fucking reason? All these terrorists been killing us all the time. So basically, here's the mindset, what's going on. We even had text. I had the text, which shocked the fuck out of me first. Literally, they're saying, and it's on Twitter, you can go and see it on Twitter, they are justifying the killing of any person from these countries that support Israel and go to heaven. So think right here, hit the brakes. So these, and about 70 versions and
exactly.
All that, whatever crap that they believe in. So anyway, so think about that. So if they're willing to kill their own for this, now is Israeli the problem?
No, and here's, let me add to that, if you don't mind. Let me add to that. So the hypocrisy is the Palestinian government and public media has been attacking Emirat and accusing them and insulting them and insulting Saudi Arabia, and they've been insulting the Iraqi politicians who want peace, but they have yet to dare open their mouth about Jordan or Turkey, who has actually peace with Israel.
Omar, I'm sorry, the connection got cut off. Can you repeat your last couple of sentences, please?
Sure. So I'm talking about the Palestinian government and in terms of the media. They've been very aggressively attacking Emirat and the Gulf countries for their peace treaties and actually attacking citizens. They're like, oh, how dare you want peace with Israel? But the same media is not willing to open their mouth and talk about Turkey's relationship with Israel or Jordan's relationship with Israel. And I think in part because they get money from the Turkish government and the Jordanian government, so they don't want to talk against them. But because Saudi Arabia and Emirat cut funding to Hamas organizations by a significant amount, they've been attacking them in the media. So I think it's a matter of money and not actual relationships. They've been attacking Arabs for having a relationship with Israel that basically have cut the funds to them. And I'm sure if Saudi Arabia has relationships with Israel but continue to give the Palestinian leaders the billions of dollars they do, they will not open their mouth and say anything about it.
Well, I want to actually respond to that by actually going a step back to what we discussed a moment earlier and give it another perspective between the media, the politicians, and the actual, the layperson. And again, it's connecting to the 2 points you discussed earlier with the Omer. I was lucky enough to work on a few episodes of Fauda, the Netflix show.
Oh, wow.
And in Fauda, for example, the last season, I was involved with a couple of episodes doing some fight choreography. And when we broke for lunch, I actually sat on the table by myself before some of the other. I broke a few minutes earlier, and then the actors came in and joined us. My table was full with the Arab actors and Arab stunts. And we sat to the table and we had lunch during the shooting, and TV shooting, not actual
TV shooting.
But yeah, fake shooting.
I'm just waiting for the doors to get in.
We sit down. There is no political discussion. We talked about martial arts. One of the actors, we went to Instagram. He was talking about his love of motorbikes, and he showed me some pictures of his motorcycles, and we discussed, the normal thing that normal people talk about.
Yeah.
And the shooting was in one of the Arab cities. Actually, it's an Arab village, Arab city, depends how you want to look at it. And it's as normal as it gets. It's a couple of people doing a day's work, breaking for lunch, having, some fun conversation. We exchange, our social media accounts. I follow him, he looks at my account, etc. It's just normal because people came to work, a fun day of work, shooting a TV show, it's pretty fun, especially when you do some choreography in it and you can do some stunts and some fun shit. And just people, shooting the breeze, sitting at a table, having a nice conversation, finishing it up, going back to filming, and it's as normal as it gets, The people, they're extremely hospitable. I mean, a lot of the locations, we were actually shooting at people's houses. All the production is set up in one house. The shooting is in a different house. The people, they get paid for lending their houses. Extremely hospitable. Everyone around is extremely helpful and
Shit, I need to be that kind of filming.
People getting work and people, people getting jobs, people being nice to each other, and it's as normal as it gets. And no one looks at me crooked because I'm Israeli Jew, and I don't look at crooked at them because they're Israeli Arabs. It's like nobody gives a shit. We're all there to do some work. It's fun. It's a long day. Yep. There's nothing about it.
At the end of the day, the people are all the same.
Yeah, people are all the same. And when Morgan Freeman, there is a very famous video cut off. I can't remember which TV show it was cut off, and it runs on social media for a few years now. That they ask Morgan Freeman, how does he suggest to get over racism? And he goes, stop talking about it.
Yep, exactly. Absolutely.
Because when you stop talking about it, the political situation is not in your the headline affair,
yep,
it's just people are people, and you sit down and you have a conversation.
Yep,
exactly.
And at the same time, one of the leading military Israeli media correspondents, and he does interviews even with family of shaheeds, of suicide bombers. And he kept saying, I've been to a few of his lectures and I got to talk with him personally. And he says, when the camera is on, you see the father goes, he was talking about a guy that two of his sons were suicide bombers. And he's like, my first son, again, the camera is on. I built 100 square feet when he died, and from the money I got from the support. And for when my second son, I built another 200 square feet to my house and added it to my house. And if my third son will go and blow himself up, then I'm going to add another wing to my house. But then when the camera is off and they're done filming him, he goes, man, it's like, I'm so scared about my third kid. It's like, I can't believe what my other two kids did. And it's one rhetoric to the media, and it's complete rhetoric when the cameras are off and it's the father grieving for his dead sons. Then the bottom line is it didn't make a dent. People died from both sides.
Exactly.
Nothing changed except that he lost two sons and his wife is now lost two kids for nothing.
Exactly.
And he's scared shitless that his teenage boy is going to do something stupid like that, and he's going to have no one left.
And I think
I want to tie.
Sure, go ahead, Omer. Sorry.
I just want to tie to the two things that both of you said, and connected to what I said before about the Israeli responsibility, because I think that if we make sure that that third kid of that man or whoever has a good reason to wake up in the morning, then he will not go and be a suicide bomber.
Absolutely,
and I think
I agree.
that if I have to put my finger on any Israeli failure, is the failure to separate the Palestinian politicians from the Palestinian people. And we have to get past the war economics and reach the people and make them be prosperous, make them profit, get more Palestinians to get good education and good jobs. And nobody that has a good job, I really like Jim Jeffries, and he says this about religion. He said that no suicide bombing ever took place by someone who doesn't believe in God. Okay? Nobody stepped into a mosque or a church and yelled out, "In the name of nothing," and blew up.
Yep.
Okay?
That's very true. We have it here now.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
I mean, do we have in France somebody said, "Allahu Akbar," and butchered a guy in the middle of the street?
Exactly.
Jesus Christ,
That's
this
going
shit
on.
is still going on.
No, I think exactly. And to add to your points, the Bollywood or Pollywood, I heard that term recently.
What is that?
Bollywood, the
Bollywood
Palestinian Hollywood. They've been using media to essentially get propaganda and benefit financially. And I think personally, this is my opinion, the Palestinians can have peace and live prosperity and live happily as long as they do one thing: they get rid of both the governments that they currently have and have a government that represents the people, that's not interested to steal money and actually get their bank accounts fatter. Hamas as an organization is a terrorist organization, and if they would, the people of Gaza would live actually happy if the Hamas leaderships loved their kids as much as they hated the Israelis. They would actually live it prosperously. But Hamas hates the Israelis more than they love their kids. That's why they're willing to send kids to die and they said and get fatter. And I think that's the major problem.
I have to interrupt you because you said something that Golda Meir said in the 70s in Israel. They asked her, she was the prime minister of Israel, and they asked her when there will be peace between Israel and the Arabs, and she said there will be peace the day the Arabs, the Palestinians, not the Arabs, sorry. The day the Palestinians love their kids more than they hate us, that's the day they will have peace.
Which is true.
So,
it is true. And the problem is, I speak, and I think me and Omer are going to touch this because it was good to get you guys' point of view, but there is a shock among I will say even the Westerners like Americans, but then again, I am harsh on America because I live here and I'm an American citizen, and I do believe we have the dumbest population on the face of the earth. So I'm gonna say this right now, and I don't care if they get offended, because they don't compute, they don't even research, they're very emotional. Like I believe Palestinians and Arabs in general are emotional. And they're like, and they explode up, technically. But the thing is, what is now been shocking, which to me it was kind of an insult, but then I had to get it in an educated way, is how it's like, people are shocked. You guys are so fucking welcoming about the Israelis. I was like, yeah, what the fuck? We were just waiting for the fucking government not to decapitate us to be okay about this. So when they were shocked, and like, first of all, when we asked you guys about you guys' perception, and Omer put it really good and said, yeah, we thought it was the political plan. Then we're like, wow, this is really happening. People are welcoming, and that. There's an advertisement campaign. There's that. Literally, I've said this, and I said it to Sam, and I've been texting him since last year about the Saudi movement on social media attacking the Palestinians. And I will touch on that so people understand why I am really I'm trying to be nice again, but I can't, but trying not to be angry and pissed off about this whole thing with Palestine and us, because Omer even is involved in it. So let me take you back to history. Before MBS took over, Mohammed bin Salman, how much money did we give Palestine a year?
$8.5 billion in the last 20 years.
$8.5 billion.
In 20 years.
Support, because they called it helping our jihadi brothers. Who the fuck came up with that shit? So, because, they feel bad. So when he cut it off, he did, the first one, because he did it smart. He said, all right, you want the land? We'll help you. Of course, they said no. He said, good. You don't want it? Then we're not supporting you. That's how it started. And then the campaign came from the writers and the media and all that.
Because it's about money, and they lost money.
Yes, it is about money. Yeah. It's 100%. We literally, I was just reading today that I said it went from 80% to 90% now.
Yeah, 90% of their funds are cut off.
Cut off of Palestine. Think about that. 90% of funds from Arab countries to Palestine. You're talking, how many people live in that country?
A lot. But
No. But what is the size of that country? I'm being serious right now.
It's not a really big
Palestine.
country.
What is it? Huh?
Gaza Street, there is no Palestine. They don't have a country.
Here we go.
Gaza Street is about 2 million people living in the size of a very, very, very small county in the U.S.
All right, so bear with me.
Not even a state.
So you see the size he said?
Yeah.
So $8.5 billion from Saudi Arabia. And what about the other countries?
Other Arab countries.
How the fuck they're living in poverty? Why they're living the way they're living? Why they don't have electricity? So this is what I'm trying to point to people. We as Arabs, when we suddenly welcomed the Israelis, understood, because we don't have any issue. We were fed this rhetoric in claiming it by religion, in claiming it by weird historical shit that we have no idea about, and it just got stuck. And the thing is we are tired of this. We are fed bullshit. We don't want to ride it. We rode this shit for so long. And I do believe the Israelis, even the Palestinians, deserve this new life and peace.
Exactly. No, they do. And I think from a Gulf perspective, we see a benefit of having relationships with Israel that never done anything wrong to us. The Palestinian government has actually harmed the Middle East. The Palestinian government, again, went to Jordan, tried to overthrow the government. They went to Lebanon and caused the civil war. They went to Iraq and did 1,201 suicide bombings.
Yes.
So the Palestinian government goes in any country they go to, they fuck it up.
They joined
fuck up any
Saddam Hussein when he invaded Kuwait. They joined Ayatollah Shah Khomeini when he invaded Mecca. I was there as a kid, and
now the Palestinian government, essentially Hamas, is going to the Iranians, kissing the hands of their leaders, begging them for money. They're known, the Palestinian government, again, I want to emphasize the government, not the people, where they go to a country, they fuck it up. They fuck up any country they go to. I'm sure if we put the Palestinian government in charge of heaven, they will fuck that up too. They will fuck up anything they touch. I swear to God. And the thing is, I think the Gulf, that move is towards peace for the Palestinian people, because when we are making peace with Israel, essentially the Gulf countries, it's cutting funds for the Palestinian government. When there is no money, that leadership has no motive to continue having a conflict.
There we go.
They basically dry the money and be like, hey man, you're living like shit and you have no more money coming. So might as well actually move forward and have peace. I think, do I see, and I hope to see one day a two-state solution where Israelis and Palestinians can live side by side? I hope so. And I I think that people want it.
I'm going to say this. It will not happen, unfortunately, without bloodshed inside Palestine. This is not going to be the interference of Israel. Maybe you guys are going to end up helping the peace when shit breaks home.
But they need to overthrow the government.
A nasty. Let's go back to the bullshit. I hated it, but that was Obama administration bullshit. The Arab Spring.
Exactly.
Something similar to that is going to break out in Palestine once these people are really broke. This is my belief, and I think Israel might want involved to stop the chaos.
Exactly, and I think that people have to stand up against the government and say we don't want it.
Take them out.
I mean, Hamas. To be perspective, Hamas themselves said, and I posted the videos. They said, "Hey, we're not fighting for Palestinian border rights. We're not. We're a religious movement that want to establish an Islamic Caliphate throughout the Middle East. They don't give a fuck about Palestinians. What they give a fuck about is establishing an Islamic regime across the Middle East. Otherwise, if they really was interested about the Palestinian people, why are they operating in Yemen, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Iraq? There's no Israeli military in these countries. Why are they there? They're there because they're trying to establish their country, their kind of government into us and shove it up our throats. And we don't want it. We don't want a religious government. We don't want Hamas's leadership in our countries. And I think drying them financially is going to force them to negotiate. And it's a move in the right direction. And I mean, the peace treaty, just to touch on it, has huge benefits to the Palestinians themselves. A lot of the Palestinians, of course, the media didn't cover it, but in terms of the Emiratis have negotiated that no more new settlements are getting built. 13 of the settlements currently gets back to the Palestinian side. So there's actual benefit to the Palestinians themselves in this peace deal.
Yeah,
it's
but
not just for
the thing is, but here's why I'm jumping on this. I'm not disagreeing with you. What benefits they get with the way they're going broke?
I mean, the government, and here's the thing:
the government has no money.
But the government, how can Haniya has $4.5 billion and he owns half of Gaza's private companies and owns apartment complexes, but yet he can't actually build a hospital?
No, I take that back. They have money, but they're not going to spend it.
They don't want to spend it on the people. They want to spend it in Europe and strip clubs. That's what they want to spend it on.
His daughter owns a bank in Jordan, right?
No, she lives in Paris.
Oh, okay. No.
Yeah, but that's what they want to spend it on.
I just want, you know what's the best forensic evidence for you being right about that? How can it be that there are 3 generations of Palestinians refugees in a lot of countries? How long can you be a refugee?
Exactly.
How can you be born in a country that your father was born in and be a refugee? My grandfathers came from Poland and from Tripoli, from Libya.
No.
I'm not a Libyan refugee, and I'm not a Polish refugee.
No.
I'm an Israeli.
Yep.
Okay, and the victimization is also like there is a war economics. There is a victimization economics. It's an economic.
Exactly.
We have it here in the
Exactly.
United States. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There is a whole economics in this.
There are lots of people shoot from the side, not shoot. I mean, the people film when there's the UN support, food support to Gaza Strip. Hamas people take the food packages and sell them. It's an economic. It's like I'm going to make a horrible
Analogy.
well, okay. I'm just gonna say it. Okay, I'm just gonna say it. During the Holocaust, in ghettos and in concentration camps, there was also a concentration camp economic. Some people had money and some people didn't. Some people traded their portion of bread for whatever. Okay, that is the human nature.
Exactly.
And we need to break that, to make a difference. And I think because of the situation of the Palestinian population, the Israelis have more tools to do it. We just need to do it. We need to want to do it. But I think because I really feel sorry for the Palestinian population, I really do. Because I want them to have a good life. Because if they have a good life, I will have a better life.
We'll make this real because
100%.
we don't wish this for them. But the problem
Nobody
is,
wishes it.
here's what I'm gonna say. As an Arab American, and I will speak that because Omer experienced it and I experienced this, and I am attacking the Arab Americans of America. This is called Two Arabs in a Podcast of America. You guys don't know this, and I will say this. They all live here. They got businesses. and when I say Arab Americans, I speak specifically about the Palestinians. They live here. They have good lives. They have good businesses. They make a good income. Actually, maybe even better than some of us. But night and day, I hear them screaming, "Fuck Israel, the power to Palestine," and screaming jihad. So here, motherfucker, you're sitting home in your air-conditioned house, in a nice house, and you got 3-4 businesses, and you got a family, but you're sitting here being a keyboard jihadi, night and day talking shit and saying, yes, Palestine for the power, and move there. Why the fuck you don't get your fucking ass and go there and fight?
No, you know what's worse? The same people who are, a lot of Palestinians in the United States are business owners.
Big time.
They don't open their checkbooks to donate to their own people, and they're mad at us. They're like, why don't you, the Gulf, help the Palestinians?
Yes.
Well, why don't you, as a business owner, open your personal check? And what's worse, some of these guys, I'm not going to name names to not get in trouble, but some of these guys are living in the United States who are very open-minded, not really religious people, drink and party, their kids are selling drugs and smoking weed, and then they sit with me and they're like, Hamas is our leader. But Hamas is a religious organization. They're a fanatic.
They'll fucking kill you.
They would kill you for knowing that you drink and party and your kids are selling weed.
Yeah.
Why the fuck are you supporting a terrorist organization that doesn't go with your personal belongings? You're not a religious man. So why are you sponsoring and supporting Hamas? It doesn't make sense to me at all.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. We have a lot of them here in Kansas City. There's a big majority of them numbers, and you get them in Florida, you get them in Detroit. And here's the thing, and the problem is I get insulted, and I repeat this, yes, as a proud Arab and American, I get insulted, we get lumped under this shit. Because I was like, no, hold on a second. I was like, where the fuck they coming from? And then you get these guys living here, having a good life, and I see them cussing Israel every day. I was like, what happened to you? Did Israel come to your house and take your fucking car?
No, I had a discussion with somebody, not to name names again. I'm not trying to get in trouble. But literally, he told me he supports Hamas. He's born in Jordan, never seen Palestine or Israel. His parents never seen it. He's never seen any part of the conflict, has never stepped foot or opened his checkbook to write $1, has never been involved in anything. But he's like, I support Hamas and Israelis are actually abusing us. How do you know? You haven't never seen it. So how do you know this? Oh, I know because I've heard. How the fuck do you know? You don't know. You're not even part of the conflict. And exactly at your point, Omar, like Palestinians in Iraq under Saddam Hussein were not allowed to get the citizenships. And it was on purpose. And a lot of Arab countries have been doing that. You have refugees that come in and they're living there for 70 years and have had 6 generations already. Yep. And they're not allowed to be citizens. They're like, no, protect your Palestinian identity. So you keep telling the numbers, be like, we have 600,000 Palestinians living in Iraq. They want to go back to Palestine. Well, they have nothing in common with Palestine. They don't even speak the language. They don't speak the dialect. They have never seen it. They have never been educated there. So what makes them Palestinians? They've been living in Iraq. They've been living in Jordan. They've been living in. I mean, there's 3 million that live in Jordan.
I have a friend, and I'm not going to mention his name, but he was a colleague martial artist, a good friend of mine.
Oh, that guy's funny.
Flipped the fuck off on me, and Omar even saw this. Literally, the dude lives here. Every now and then he'll go to Palestine, but he lives here, has an amazing reputation, gym, and all that. Anytime there's some fucking anti-Israel thing, he's there. And I sent him one day, and I was like, what the fuck's wrong with you doing this shit? Why are you living here then? And then when we started posting about the Gulf is going to be moving forward with it, he attacked the fuck out of me. And I told him, I was like, dude, are you mentally sick? Because honestly, I don't think you even are Palestine. Oh, and he got insulted. I was like, first of all, you're an American. You got a passport, right? That's one. 2, you run a business here. Why are you taking money from Americans if they are the allies of Israel? Exactly. So you say I should be killed because I support Israel. Oh, by the way, Sam, he even went off on me when he saw pictures of me and you together. Believe it or not. And he's like, he made a disgusting comment. He's just like, oh, what is that you're doing with that Israeli that's going to backstab you? I was like, excuse me, he's more honorable to me than you. But I was even shocked at that level and rhetoric. And the dude held a stance against me. And I told him, go fuck yourself. I don't give a shit. But it's hypocrisy. He's here. He's making money here, but now because the Arab nations have stood up by Israel, now we should be killed. Now we're the bad guys. So hold on a second. Since when America's been supportive of Israel?
Since 1948.
Okay. So why you're here then?
Sorry, but I have to correct you. America has been supportive of Israel really, let's say, since the 60s, 70s. Before that, France was the main supporter of Israel.
Oh, wow.
And
But now they step back.
For historical purposes, the U.S. voted in the UN resolution of 47 about the separation of two states in this region to a Palestinian and Israeli states, the 47 resolution. Israel, before the voting, was against the resolution because the U.S., I believe it was Roosevelt,
That's right.
his advisor said that if the state of Israel will be established in 48 or after the British mandate is over, all the Arab countries will try to invade, which essentially everyone we had border and a couple that we didn't have borders did invade. And they said that it's going to cost the 400,000 U.S. troops to be sent over to protect the Israeli state. And after World War II, they said, we're not going to send our troops.
Exactly.
And that many troops. But so it took a lot of wheeling and dealing behind the scene, political wheeling and dealing to get the U.S. support. But essentially, they were against the Israeli state because they were like, we're not going to shed American blood to have the Israeli state.
Exactly.
And that is documented by one of our military historians.
Oh, wow.
But anyways, by the way, Frass, I never told you this, but it's the exact same sentence in Hebrew. I had a friend of mine who's a martial artist, a really good friend of mine, and I've visited Kansas City, I don't know, at least 4 or 5 times doing seminars and
Shit, more than that. Yeah.
staying at your place.
Yep.
Something like that. And we've been friends for a long time.
We say seminars, but we've been doing more than that. But anyways.
Exactly.
And when I talked with my friend about this, and again, an Israeli martial artist, and I talk about him, and I said, I mean, I'm not hiding the fact that, you know, you're Saudi, you're Arab, and you're one of my closest friends. I consider you family.
Yep.
And I told him about you, and he's just like, he's gonna stab you in the back.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I sleep at his house. I babysit his kid. But I'm sleeping right now. But I basically was a little kid.
Yep.
I mean,
Man, you had your family. You ate with my father and my family and everything.
Yeah, it's like, he's gonna stab you in the back. I was just like, you can't trust the Arab. I was like, well, I can't trust this one. But it's the same thing.
It's just fucking crazy.
And it's again, when all you are fed is political rhetoric.
Yes.
And nowadays it's even worse because you don't need to open TV.
Absolutely, I agree.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's way worse.
It on social media 24/7.
Yep.
Exactly.
And the more extreme, the more it circles around, and people are just fed all this bullshit. And the bottom line is, when you sit down and have a conversation with a person, unless he's a fanatic, you're gonna have a nice conversation.
Which is both sides are bad.
You know, I thought when I was on the way here, I stopped at a place of 2 friends of mine, and I get whiskey bottles from Europe to Israel with friends.
Legit?
We just get them, send them over.
Is that Irish whiskey or what do you guys drink, by the way?
Excuse me?
What kind of whiskey you guys drink? Irish whiskey?
No, fuck Irish.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say fuck that shit. That's nasty. Yeah, okay, good.
Yeah, so I went to 2 friends on the way here, and one of them told me, listen, why don't you get inside and have a drink? I told him, listen, I have to go, I'm late. And he asked, where are you late? And I told him, listen, I have a friend who has 2 Arab friends in the US, and we're recording a podcast, and both of them said, wow, this is so cool, that's great. People are really happy to hear those things. So I think the more time passes, people are either really prejudiced or really not.
Exactly.
I really think, you know, as we getting close to our timing, but I know we gotta be doing more with you guys. This is gonna be exciting because I'm excited. But I really think, before I give it to Omer right now, I just want to say one thing: we are fed up.
Exactly.
Us in the Middle East are fucking fed up. I mean, now the Western are just going through their thing, which is the West is always weird. I never understood them. They had everything before us, and they're going through things
backwards.
100 years. We're going forward, and they're going backwards. It is really crazy that I'm even getting invitations and contemplating to go back because this shit here is retarded. But what I'm trying to say, I think we as Middle Easterns in general are fed up. I think we want to move forward. I do believe that we have so much to offer, we would not need the West.
Exactly.
By any means. I mean, between the amazing technology in Israel and some of the great stuff that the Gulf have been pioneering, just think about the prosperity and the future. I mean, come on, for fuck's sake, we're neighbors.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
And I think before wrapping it up, I mean, in conclusion, all people are the same. We're all born and die the same, regardless of where we're born.
No, I'm out of fucking.
We don't get to choose where we're born. I didn't get to choose to be Iraqi. You didn't get to choose Saudi. You guys didn't get to choose to be Israelis. So regardless of where we're born, we're all people. We all want to live the same, like Omer, you said. We all want to have good futures, have married, and a good careers. So regardless of politicians who want to divide us and want to create division to benefit financially from us. And I think the future is the Gulf is going to have open relationships with Israel. We never had issues in the first place. People are excited about it. People have been open about it. The Iraqis are speaking on social media very highly.
Actually, you guys started, when did you guys do that protest? Was it last
October,
year?
Last year.
Pulling the Israeli flags?
Israelis flag are flying in Iraq in protest, and they're saying to the Iraqi government, have a relationship with Israel. And it's a move motivated slightly by having basically anti-Iran, so fuck Iran, we're going to carry Israeli flags. But regardless, it's a good move. And I think the Palestinians deserve good life. They deserve good. They deserve to have a good future. But the solution for them, in my opinion, and I think everybody agrees, is to get rid of their current government that benefits from their death and have a government that represents the people so they can live in prosperity, they can live and have a good future. And I think in conclusion, we all should go to Israel and get drunk in your bar and call it a day.
Hey, Sam. I know they're going to look at me. Are you crazy? I need to get a wife. I think I'm going to get an Israeli wife. Look at Samuel.
And I've been learning Hebrew, by the way.
Yeah, you're married. You're fucked. So anyways, I'm going to sit with these guys. I got to figure out. There's like, why the hell do you want an Israeli wife? I was like, I don't know. Look what's going on with me here. I had enough.
Exactly. Well, we appreciate you guys joining, and I'm sure we're going to do this another episode. We're going to be doing this
again. I got a feeling we should do it. 2 Arabs and 2 Israelis on a podcast. God help the podcast.
Exactly.
Like 4 Middle Easterners on a fucking podcast. I got a feeling Apple is going to fuck us so bad with this one, because already Omer got kicked, ladies and gentlemen, out of Instagram. And if you notice, I've been playing nice because there's good friends of mine getting banned. Like, I'm going to address this. I know we're short of time. Tom DeBlas?
Yeah.
Did you see what happened to him?
They're censoring people.
I don't know if Sam, you follow Tom DeBlas, my friend, right? The jiu-jitsu, just an amazing guy. And if you notice, he has shadow banned, which the guy makes money on social media. Like some of us now, I've been in that part that I make money. And I've noticed some of my posts.
They've been censoring.
It's been like slower than others. So they beat him to the fucking thing and he put him in a corner. Now he's a little bit back. And I don't know, what is this? Maybe we're going to need a podcast about this, but it's just now to the point is like.
The censorship.
Our social media is our income and this is how you want to attack us?
Exactly.
I mean, I've been calm. I was told to calm down after my fucking stroke. So what the fuck?
Well, thank you guys for joining. Until next time.
Thank you to our sponsors.